Hi, my name is Madeleine Eno, and I am from intherightplace.com. And I am here today with one of my favorite people, Barbra Gilman.
I
And I'm working on a book with Barbra. And in the process of working on this book, I have been delighted and transformed by the information. And it's made me want to just jump on the call today and ask Barbra a few questions just to help us understand the field that she works in, which is access consciousness. So thank you, Barbra. It's great to see you.
thank you.
And how would you describe access consciousness to someone who hasn't heard about it?
Well, I would say that it is the most weird and wackiest and playful way of becoming the greatest possibility of you that you could ever imagine. I have been searching my whole life, literally since I was a teenager. I always knew that there was something greater and something out there that most people didn't know. And I literally went through my whole life up until 7 years ago, taking every modality having to do with, first it started in the spiritual world, and then it went to consciousness and energy. And again, I can't even remember every course and every training that I took. And they all, clearly they all did a little bit here and a little bit there, but I still knew that it just, how you just get that feeling, there's something else. And 7 years ago, I found Access Consciousness. And as a matter of fact, when I found it and I was listening to it, I actually was crying.
Yeah.
I just knew I was home. It just literally felt like nothing I had ever experienced. And in these 7 years, coming from being a therapist, and I never worked totally positively because I began working in the spiritual world. But I literally have no words, and I know it's so hard when I say that, but I have no words to even describe how I see change with people going through this. And the wonderful thing is that you're interviewing me and you've been through it. So,
So what kind of change can you describe, just for people who are just listening for the first time, some of what those changes might look like for people or for you?
Well, for me, I'm a Gemini, for people who get that. And so it's like, the twin.
Yeah.
And my father was also, and I always used to call my father a closet person. He wanted to be a brain surgeon, and he could have been. He really was at a genius level. But, because of being raised all those years ago and having so many children in the family, and he was the eldest. Anyway, he didn't become a brain surgeon. He became a graphic designer. And he always felt less than, because he knew, and this is a knowing. We have a knowing of who we truly be.
Yeah.
It's always there because it's us. However, when you come into this reality, which I could say jokingly, but it's not really jokingly, this is an insane asylum. I used to call it the Truman Show, and then I went to the Truman Show on steroids, and now I just say it's an insane asylum, because everything really is the opposite of what we believe it is, or what they tell us it is.
Can you give an example of that one, just to help people understand? What's an example of something that stands out in the insane asylum?
Yeah. Oh, well, we could look at the word love. Okay. Love and family and things like that. Now, by themselves, let's say when the word was invented, it was a wonderful concept. Love. Oh my God, what better than that? And especially as women, we were brought up with Cinderella and all of those lovely stories. Okay. The question, though, is that real? Where do you see love actually being that past the beginning, as I call it, whatever the beginning is, a few weeks, a few months, couple of years, And as a therapist, I've done so much relationship work, years ago. And so, as I say now, I totally believe that 90-something% of every relationship that's out there, if it wasn't for splitting up the money or having the kids become, kids of divorce, or whatever else our stuff is, there would be no marriages, because it's like taking two wild animals and of different species and putting them in a cage together. And we don't understand what relationship is, because we've been programmed into the relationship of Cinderella.
Mm.
And so if we're talking about love, let's say family. So the question I always ask people is, who do you have in your family or in your life who doesn't judge you? And most people say, no one. Now, as I say, it's my dog. And then everyone else agrees, yes, it is my dog. Now, on one hand, you could say it's very sad, but look, isn't it wonderful that we do have these animals? So animals don't live with judgment. They don't judge. Consciousness, which is what Access consciousness is all about, is simply having no point of view, having no judgment, living from a space where you have no judgment, okay? Yeah. There is the teeniest tiny amount of people, and plus a lot of animals on the planet, who live that way. Otherwise, we all live in judgment. Yeah. So a family, when you really think about it, okay, who in your family doesn't judge you? No one. I only met one woman who said her great-great-grandmother. So my question is, how could love encompass judgment? How could someone truly love you if they judge you? Yeah. Because judging you is just about the most abusive thing that we can do to people. That's why we're all in the shape that we are. As I say, crawling on all fours almost, because why do people come to this kind of work? What would you say?
Well, I would say that they are limited or stuck, or in some way that they've hit a wall, that they want something and they haven't gotten there.
Exactly. But the thing that we want, even though we've been trained to believe it's money, because they took all the money away, or the possibility of money, other story. And so now we struggle for that pinnacle that we've been trained to believe is the most important thing, which is a lie. Yeah. And that's another story. You have to come to the money class or talk about money. But what we're really looking for is us. Yeah. But not the role, character, and costume that we put on so long ago so we can be approved by those people that were bringing us up. But then the question is, why would we have to do that? Because we were being judged. Because we were being made wrong.
Right. And making ourselves wrong. That's a big piece of it too, right?
Yes, but you can't start making yourself wrong unless you've experienced it. An infant coming in, is certainly not going to judge itself. Yeah. They're going to do all the things they do right out in front of us, including pooping and everything else. They don't think it's wrong. There's nothing they think is wrong, because nothing is. And little by little, we entrain them. We impel these orders of what our civilization is. And little by little, they feel wrong, so they start cutting off pieces of themselves. Yeah. Okay? And as we do this, we're giving up who we really be. Yeah. Until we get to a place, and right now in this world, I would probably say by 10 years old, a child now, they're gone. They're no longer there. It's the role, the character, and the costume that they're putting on to be right, perfect, and correct, and fit into this insane world.
Yeah. So what happens when you start to work with someone? And I know Access is all about the questions. And what is the process, or what is the possibility when you're working one-to-one with someone and asking them questions, undoing some of this, awakening?
And that's, that's probably one of the most magical parts of it, because coming again as a therapist working without these tools. And I always had, spiritual tools, law of attraction, then even before law of attraction, my teacher from 30 years ago, Lazarus, who is actually still around, one of the first people doing energy and consciousness. I mean, I always had tools. However, they weren't the incredible, magical, energetic tools, and there wasn't a language of consciousness. Those are the two things that is required. So it's like, and please remember your question, but this just came from awareness, so so years ago, I went to live in Europe, and I was going to be there for, years, a couple. And anyway, and so a friend said, well, don't you want to speak the language if you want to order your pizza and ice cream, my two favorite food groups? And so long story short, I went to Berlitz and went over there. But it was very interesting that they said, how could you order what you want if you don't speak the language?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this is about. We're living on a planet where we do not know the language. The language has nothing to do with psychology. It has nothing to do really with thinking, because thinking is always from the past. You can only think about something that you've already learned. Okay? And it's not, we have probably, for those people who are choosing to have more, greater, better, and change, right now on the planet, 90%, if not more, is still in that paradigm of psychology and of working with coaches, which is wonderful. Okay, don't get me wrong. This is really important here. Okay, it's not about judging, because as I say, the kindergarten teacher is just as important as the Harvard professor. You wouldn't have one without the other. However, as we extend the possibility of consciousness on the planet, there has to be a continual growth.
Yeah.
You can't just find something and then say, okay, this is it, because that's structure. And that's why the planet is dying, because people are terrified of change.
Yeah.
So access and the language of consciousness with these energy tools is that next possibility.
So I'm a writer, so I'm all about examples and painting a picture.
Okay, cool.
Talk to us a little bit about the language of consciousness. Say something's gone sideways in your day. Your car breaks down on the way to a really important meeting. How do we ask questions? How do we work with that in the language of consciousness?
Okay, so let's say we have this woman, Ellen, and Ellen is all dressed up in her very best, and she's going for what she considers, and I'm saying she considers, a very important interview.
Yes.
So she's on her way, everything is great. All of a sudden it starts raining, and then of course we're in Portland, so that makes sense, and it's pouring, and then she gets a flat tire. Now, the normal person who is looking for a result in life, we are trained and taught to look for results. If you're working with a coach and a business coach, whoever you're working with, you're looking for a result. The problem with that, again, that's the structure. That's the old paradigm, okay? However, those people who are there now, that's exactly where they need to be. Nothing wrong there, okay? But for those people who are ready to move on to the next possibility, you don't want to look for a result because it can only be from the past.
Right.
You want something that is beyond the past. And as I would say, beyond this reality, the reality of insanity. You want something that is conscious, that's going to actually have your life change in a way that it'll work for you and not against you. So was it Ellen?
It was Ellen by the side of the road. Yep.
Okay. So in this case, if Ellen was, let's say, a student of Access Consciousness, she wouldn't get out of the car and kick the car and do a little swearing and then look at the results she was looking for and go into disappointment, go into fear, go into depression, and all of that stuff, okay, which the normal person would do, okay? No, Ellen is not there anymore. So she's going to say to herself, well, I'm choosing consciousness. I know consciousness has my back, so I'm just going to put out some questions, okay, to the universe. What else is possible here, okay? What's right about this I'm not getting? Because if the universe has my back, the universe has something in its, I'm not going to say mind, but you know what I'm saying, that's even better than I can imagine in this moment. Because you see, Ellen can only imagine getting to that job that she read about, and that seems like the result she wants. She's not thinking about anything greater because whatever that was hasn't even showed up yet. She hasn't heard of anyone who could have something like that. So she's putting these questions out. What's right about this I'm not getting? What's right about me I'm not getting? How could this turn out even greater than I can imagine? Now, it's not just like, oh, you know, like a question or even a prayer. And prayer is real. The only difference between people who pray as a religious thing do not get that God or source or whatever doesn't speak words, it speaks language. So the universe would get, let's say, Ellen's prayer, which would be, oh my God, I have to get to that, you know, interview. It's so important because, and I'm, and she's all like this, and I have to get there. If I don't get there, my life is going to fall apart. Now, because the universe doesn't speak words, it speaks energy, it's not getting the words. Okay, she thinks it would be getting the words, but no, the universal language is energy. So the universe receives the energy of that. What's the energy of that, Madeleine?
The energy of her panic and lack, is fear. It's attracting only life falling apart things.
That, you see, and it's so simple. The universe doesn't have a point of view. It doesn't have judgment, and judgment is a point of view.
Yeah.
So, with no point of view, the universe simply says, oh, well, Ellen down there wants some more disappointment, some more lack, some more fear.
Yeah.
And it'll leave her standing there for another 3 hours, okay? However, if you're asking a question, the question is basically coming from a space of total allowance, which is, well, there has to be something better than this, even though I might not know what it is at this moment.
Right.
And energetically, the universe simply sends that energy. And that energy can show up as anything. It might not show up till tomorrow, but to make it even a greater story, let's say that all of a sudden a car pulls up and a man comes out, a young man, he changes her tire. And as he's changing the tire, they're having a conversation because she's so, telling, well, this is what happened. I'm going for an interview. He says, well, what kind of job are you looking for? Long story short, his father owns a company that is looking for someone like Ellen. But let's say he needs someone to live in Paris. And it's going to come with a magnificent apartment overlooking this, it's like this wonderful, amazing thing that she never could have thought of. Okay, and that's what she ends up receiving. So that's the magic in the universe, and the universe is only magic. It's we, based on the structure that we have been entrained into, which is results, looking for results. They can only be this, and having the structure, well, I can't choose this, I have to choose this, I can't do this, and that cuts off all of the magic that we could have.
Yeah, so results, even if we think we might be open to all kinds of possibilities, I think my sense is that most people have a specific result in mind, that I will be a success when this happens, when this happens.
Absolutely. As you know, I just moved to Portland a little more than a year ago. And it's quite amazing to me that most of the people that I talk about this, there's not an expansion of possibility. It sounds just a little bit too different, or you know what, I have what I have, or I'm okay here, but I'm not looking for change. And this is the thing where we are literally, it's impelled on us to not want change. It's like an algorithm, okay, we work on, and we don't even realize it. If you're not, I say to the people I work with and myself, if you don't have something in your life that feels uncomfortable, you're moving too slow.
Yeah.
And if you're moving slow and you're a person at the same time who was asking for something different, it can't happen.
Yeah. Where in this does close? I know one of the things you talk about so eloquently in the book is this tool of close the back door, shut the back door. How does that tie in to opening up new possibilities?
Well, it's basically, closing the back door is simply that because we are so afraid of change, we've been brought up with the lie of us, okay? Because we don't know the power and potency and what we're really capable of. So we all grow up, the greatest people, okay? If you can pick anyone out there who's famous, who's rich, it doesn't matter. If you get to know them, you will see that underbelly where they think they're less than, they're not good enough. I always remember the story of years ago when I was just starting college. My girlfriend was a fashion photographer, and she got a job working for a very big, agency or whatever. So she was working with the top models, including, and I can never remember her name, the famous one back in the maybe 70s with the little, at that time she had the space between, anyway, it doesn't matter, her teeth.
Yes.
And so I would go with her on these shoots, and I would meet these famous models, and, you would meet them, and the interesting thing is, if you would have a conversation with them, they all thought they were fat and ugly.
Yeah, Lauren Hutton. Her name just popped into my head.
Oh, exactly.
Lauren Hutton. Yeah. Who probably,
but this
felt
is,
that way.
This is who we all are.
Yeah.
Okay, because we never. It's like saying that the embryo was transforming into the butterfly, but somewhere in between, the button went on stop.
Yes.
And we never got there because of all the lies that were put on us after we gave ourselves up.
Yeah.
Once you give yourself up, as that, I call that your GPS system. Once you shut off that GPS system that would take you to that greatness, the gifts and the capacities that you have as a being.
Yeah.
It's like you're missing half of yourself.
Yeah.
And so you can only think of yourself as less than and pathetic and wrong. And that's the greatest sadness. In New York, I was known as a coach's coach and a healer's healer. And I worked with these incredibly powerful women. And the thing that about every one of them, and well, I am powerful and potent, so I'm not going to say that I'm not, is that change is something that powerful and potent women are always looking for.
Yeah.
That's why I've taken every single training and course that I ever came across that felt like, oh, maybe this is the next one. If you are a person who wants to have you can't just stop and say, okay, this is it, I have it. It's easy, it's working, I have enough money to survive or whatever. No. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying no, that's a bad thing. Okay, it could be great. You could have a great life. I'm just saying, if you're the person like me who I'll go through anything, which I am now, just to find the greatest part of me.
Yeah.
Me, not the part of me, but all of me, that it's like you can feel that difference. You can know who I am today after Acceess. I mean, I was always out there doing it. People always thought that I was totally different, being on the edge of what's change and consciousness and energy and visible. But I knew that there was this part of me that I still hadn't gotten to.
Yeah.
And you know what? If I live to be 100, I'll still be saying that.
Yeah. And when people work with you, how, because we're undoing, or I just picture us in many, many years of buildup of finding the wrongness in ourselves and hearing about it from the outside and living in this insane asylum. How long in a session can people expect change quickly?
Amazingly quickly.
Can you talk a little bit about that, how that can happen so quickly?
Well, the interesting thing when I talk about that, I'm sure that most people don't believe me, and I'm glad I have you, because you know that you've
I
seen
believe you.
But it's very hard to believe. And to tell you the truth, before I found Access, if you told me what I have now seen and experienced, I maybe wouldn't believe it either.
Yeah.
Literally, and this is not everyone, okay, but you have a spectrum. So there are some people here who literally their whole entire life, and I mean this 100%, their whole entire life, no matter what happened. I had a woman who was a healer in New York, sexually molested by her father when she was like this big. There's one of my trainings, it's a 4-day training, it's called the Foundation. You literally could come in and almost go to sleep, and yet you'll get the whole thing because it's energy.
Mm.
And you've done it, so you know. But literally within 2 hours of the class beginning, okay, she brought that subject up, and I just started to work the way that an Access facilitator works, and all of a sudden, energetically, this woman morphed into this other being.
Yeah.
Because she was willing at one level to let go of that pain and trauma that she was holding on to. God knows how long, I don't know, okay, because it might have been clearly more than this lifetime, but still. And from that day on, her life became a totally different life. Her relationship, her marriage, everything, her healing center flourished. I mean, everything changed. And it's like when you say that, and my friends in New York who were psychologists and psychiatrists, they would look at me and they would say, Barbara, I know you're not lying, but I can't wrap my head around it. And I said, you know what? I can't either.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's over here. But there will be people, and I would say more than half of the people, maybe more than 3/4 of the people who go through that training will definitely at the end, and I have the videos because I do it right at the end of the class, as you know, they will say that the space that they are, because we are space, we're not the form that we think we are. Actually, our bodies are inside the space of us, which is infinite. But anyway, the point is, you can feel, some people can literally feel the change in who they are and in their body. It's like this expansion, that it's like you're in a balloon and all of a sudden somebody blew you up and now you're like in the Macy's Day parade balloon.
Yeah.
Or the stress, or it's so hard to explain something that you've never experienced, okay? But most people who will go through that training, their whole life will change. It'll change this much for some, this much, and for some, their whole entire life. And I have a man right now, it's one of the most amazing stories, and you know the story of John, and I'm not going to go into it here, but his whole entire life and his wife, I mean, and everything has totally changed after that one class.
Yeah.
And what he's doing now is amazing. He never thought he would possibly be doing this. My point is, it's magic. It is magic.
It is magic. I agree. And I wonder what you would say to people who might be watching this and thinking, well, that all sounds really cool, but I'm one of those Portlanders who's just like kind of comfortable. What do you say to those folks who feel like this is interesting? However, they're putting up some barrier.
Yeah, well, you see, the thing to that is there's really nothing that anyone can say, because it's all choice.
Yes.
Choice, as I say, choice is the #1 tool in the universe.
Yeah.
When you're ready to choose for you. And again, we are entrained, okay? It is impelled at us from the moment we come in to choose against us. Everything that we do, every order that we get from our parents, not that they know what they're doing, okay? They're just following what their parents or the television or the coach or the psychiatrist told them. The thing is, it's all a lie.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a heavy word, but when you start getting into the language of consciousness and you see what reality really is, okay, so this is what we think reality is. Again, love is the Cinderella story, and this is what I'm going to go for. And then you go for it and you get it, but it falls apart. Then you get disappointed or you get angry, okay? But even when you're there, you're still going for that, even though it didn't work, because you still believe that it's real and you don't know it's the fantasy. Okay, so clearly, if you knew it was a fantasy and you knew there could be a different possibility for relationship, okay, so I'm not going to go into how that is right now, but it is, you know, it's like, what if relationship wasn't what you thought it was? What if it's totally different? What if money wasn't what you thought it is? What if your body wasn't what you thought it is? Because everything that you think that you know about anything in this reality, again, I hate to say this word, but it is a lie. Or it's a, you have, I mean, you know what I'm saying. So, you know, a lie is a strong word. It is a lie, but maybe if I said distortion or whatever, what would you say?
I feel okay with a lie because I can see how quickly that possibility thinking opens up a whole new way to look at something. And I guess where I've seen it is in how entrained I am to look for certain results or certain destinations, and how the what else is possible here has helped incredibly shift my awareness. So yeah, I'm like you. I've done a ton of work and I feel like I'm a pretty conscious person, and I feel like this opened up yet another level and another way of looking at just about every aspect of my life.
Yes.
So I don't mind lie, but I can see why people might have a problem with it.
Yes, well, and only because it seems so inconceivable,
right?
What I'm saying. And that makes it like, oh, you know, she's or what or this, and I'm not going to try it. But the thing is, there are some people like you, okay, like me, that somehow you hear it and energetically it just touches you in a way that you have to go.
Yeah.
Because you have to. It's like me, in this lifetime, it doesn't matter what I'm going through in the moment, okay, of how I might be living or whatever. There is I don't know what the word is, a passion, something that just pulls me, that I have to know the greatest me that I can be. I want to know all of the magic,
yeah.
Okay. And so when I get that energy, it's like a dog sniffing a sausage. I have to be there. And those are the people who find Access. I mean, Access is taught in 173 countries now. It's the leading edge of consciousness on the planet. And even though it's still, you know, for a tiny percentage of people, but for those people, this amount of people can change the whole planet.
Yeah.
You know, you've heard me speak that, you know, about 6 years ago, I sat and spoke with Nassim Haramein, who that year was the top quantum physicist because he amended Einstein's quantum theory, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the conversation, whatever we were talking about, he said, and the only thing that'll change any of this is consciousness.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, how many people have I met who will say, you know, I thought if our eyes are open, we're conscious. So this is what we're dealing with right now, and that's okay. But basically, I guess this is about someone out there right now is getting the energy, is hearing us speaking, and it's going to resonate with them, and they're going to go, yes, this is what I've been looking for. Yeah. And so then it becomes, and that's what my life is about, is being a contribution to what would it take to touch someone else in a way that they feel what we can feel, And then it's being you and changing the world, which, by the way, is one of the greatest books. If anyone needs to, or not needs, but is looking for the greatest book in the world, having anything to do with change and consciousness, Dr. Dane here, being you and changing the world, okay? Because that's what this is all about. And, you know, it's like for anyone who wants to be that, this is it.
Well, and I know you have a book coming out and a new website about to launch at barbragilman.com. But can you talk a little bit? I know you've got sessions opening up at River West Acupuncture in Portland. Can you talk a little bit about how people could check out a session with you if they were interested?
Absolutely. Well, Barbara is spelled like Streisand, except please do not expect me to sing like her. Barbragilman. But yes, so the new website is coming out in a day or two, which I'm very excited about. It was created by Alicia Putman, who I would recommend from the top of the Empire State Building, as I would Miss Madeleine over here. What other question did you ask me?
How do people schedule a session with you?
Yes. Okay. Well, call me, bump into me, text me, email me. I will be working also through River West Acupuncture, and I do free intros at least once a month.
Mm-hmm.
I have my women's group called Wild Women Choosing, which is basically the way that many women do find the work, because it's a way of sort of finding it, like coming to an intro, okay? We simply do what's called energetic processing, which is the magic. And as you know, there are women who just come to that group and for an hour of this processing before they even get to the classes, and their lives change. So it's not only fun, and it's also, you know, I mean, it's not a networking group, although of course it's women getting together and getting to know each other. And it works better for your business when you're working with someone, you know, so whether it's a web builder or an accountant or anyone, if they speak the language, because when you're working with consciousness and magic, you're actually communing with the molecules of everything. I'm not going to go into that now, quantum physics, but made for a 5-year-old. And yeah, and it's, you know, it's as you know, it's quick, it's easy, it's fun, it's really play.
I love it. It is. So what's one thing you can end on? We're just about to run out of time on the call, but what's one easy question that people can take from this conversation to ask themselves, just to experience a little taste of Access?
Well, just the question, or you're saying the processing question?
Yeah, well, we haven't really talked about processing, so maybe just a question.
Yes, okay. Well, so what would you choose if you knew that nothing was impossible?
Mm.
Who would you be if you could be all that you truly be? And how would that change the world? And everywhere that you've been giving you up to other people's points of view so you could fit in, what would it take for you to give that up and just be you?
Yeah. Perfect. A perfect question. Thank you. So again, at barbragilman.com, BARBRA, Gilman.com. And what a pleasure to talk with you. And I'm so excited about your book coming up.
Yes. And thank you for the contribution that you be on this planet, Miss Madeleine.
Thank you, Miss Barbara. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.